What is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome to Collectors Gone Digital. My name is Josh, and on today's episode, we are covering all the key points from both of Ben's recent interviews, one with 𝗕𝗵𝗵 and one with VeVe 𝗵𝗔𝗵. Now, links to the full interviews will be in the description down below. I don't want to waste any time. We got lots of points to talk about. So, as always, if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Grab a drink, grab a snack, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So starting off with 𝗕𝗵𝗵's interview, we have about 10 different topics to cover here, and the first one has to do with the VeVe-verse. 𝗕𝗵𝗵 begins the interview by asking Ben if he was responsible for setting the VeVe-verse in motion. Ben says that there's several components of a business being worked on at any given time. He said there's never been a lack of ideas. In fact, new ideas are being created every day, but prioritizing what to focus on has been the toughest challenge. And so Ben's focus has been set on prioritizing and executing. Now, one example that does fall in line with what Ben's saying here was Dan's recent comment about how VeVe-verse development was on and off. So I'm assuming, and this is just based off what Ben has said about timelines in the past as well, that he probably came in, picked up on this, and started pushing him. Now moving on, 𝗕𝗵𝗵 asked Ben about his first thoughts after seeing the VeVe-verse. And apparently Ben actually asked to see it in his initial round of interviews. He said he was well aware of discussions around the VeVe-verse before joining the team. And so he wanted an idea of what was actually going on before he got involved. Now, Ben sees the VeVe-verse as a place where collectors can share their passion, but from any location around the world. He says it's a game changer for collecting, and I do want to put emphasis on collecting here because this type of thing has been happening in the gaming space since, the beginning of the internet. I was actually thinking about this during my time in Vegas because that was my first time meeting people that I met online in real life, but it wasn't my first time developing relationships with people online. For example, there were lots of people I would game with on Xbox as a kid that I never met. Now, speaking of Vegas, look at what just happened there. Also, look at what happened in New York back in October. People will want to do exactly what happened there in a virtual setting. This is already happening in platforms like VR chat, but think past that because platforms like this now are actually going to be used as a tool for people who can't actually connect in real life because of distance, for example, like me with Hanano and D. I'm in Canada, Hanano and D are in Hawaii. Ben also mentions that when VeVe recorded the recent demo video, Dan was in New York, Corey was in Ohio, and Ben was in New Zealand. But despite the distance, they're all still hanging out in the same room, looking at the same collectibles, talking about the same things. All in all, Ben's vision for VeVe is to become a household name for physical collectors who may find out about the digital side and now join and become a part of all this. Now, while recording the interview, 𝗕𝗵𝗵 was actually in Singapore, and he actually held up his phone to point out a Tokidoki product with the VeVe logo that he actually saw while on his trip there. Ben mentions that VeVe has users in over 180 countries and that physical collecting continues to grow immensely. He says that VeVe is in talks with companies like Tokidoki, but also companies in other categories about how digital collectibles can connect to their physical counterparts. Now, speaking of exactly that, they move into the Doodles collaboration with McDonald's. And in case you guys missed it, they did print over 100 million cups with the Doodles design on it, an NFT project in the Web3 space. Now, similar to the conversation I had with Ben about Fortnite, he thinks this is fantastic for the space because even if people aren't aware of the IP, they're going to look at it and some will eventually ask. 𝗕𝗵𝗵 asked Ben if collaborations like this are possible in the future, and Ben says that he certainly thinks so considering the IP relationships that VeVe already has, but also the fact that larger companies are going to get more involved in the space over time. Now, 𝗕𝗵𝗵 brings up Ben's past work experience here, talking about how he has jumped from job to job, and he asks if he plans on staying longer with VeVe. Now, Ben says that he came to VeVe not just as an employee, but also as a shareholder of the company. He said that he recognized it was a big decision and move for David and Dan, and that he wanted to show he had some skin in the game. He said he's always been excited by growth and challenges, and the size of VeVe compared to the current market size of collecting is tiny, and so there's lots of room for growth. He says the company falls in line with his incentives, meaning if the company does well, he does also, and he intends on staying as long as they'll have him. Of course, guys, this doesn't mean another opportunity can't come up. So, nothing is ever set in stone. Now, does Ben have a role on the 𝗕𝗵𝗵 team? This has been a question asked a lot lately. We've kind of already got the answer, but this is what he had to say about it. So right now his personal focus is on VeVe. He says if VeVe grows, all other components of the business will follow, and I completely agree. VeVe is the heart, pumping blood to the rest of the body. No pun intended there, by the way. He said he can certainly have a role in helping the token get on exchanges, for example, and this makes sense given his last role was at Binance. But just because he isn't speaking about it does not mean he isn't working on it. He says a business focuses on multiple things at any given time. VeVe has moved from a startup business to a scale-up business. But again, just because Ben is speaking about VeVe and wearing a VeVe shirt doesn't mean he isn't focused and working on the token. In terms of any news about 𝗖𝗵, Ben says that VeVe and 𝗖𝗵 have issued roadmaps in the past with good intentions, of course. Moving forward, the team will be transparent about things they are working on, but they will not be providing a step-by-step roadmap, which he also adds that many large and successful companies don't typically do this anyways. For a couple reasons. Competitive advantage, but then Ben also mentions about how no one really knows what customers are going to want 3, 5, 10 years from now. You might release something on a roadmap now that 3 years from now doesn't matter anymore. Captain VeVe then asked Ben about some in real life events, which Ben says he will be attending next year. He also mentions though how VeVe intends on doing more. So they are looking at developing a strategy for how they can generate a presence outside of large US events. So smaller events in other places around the world. Ben also adds that a few more team members have been added in their events department to help plan this out. He says with users in over 180 countries, I quote, "We want to try and reflect that." Now in terms of some other large goals that Ben wants to achieve, he talks about his day one plan. According to him, this is a 12-month action plan around delivery, and it includes very clear numbers and objectives. He said he's taken those business objectives to every single team in the business so that each team is very clear about what they need to do to help contribute to the overall goal. According to Ben, every single person in VeVe by the start of 2025 will have a very clear set of objectives and goals. They'll know exactly how they're doing on those, and those will feed into their team, and their team will feed into the overall business. Lastly, for our first recap here, they round the interview off talking about Christmas plans, to which Ben says that he can't really speak too much on it, but you can see in his face that he's very excited for what they have planned. It sounded to me like they might be trying something new. Now, just like Captain VeVe's interview, there were some points that have kind of already been addressed, so I've taken those out of this video to save some time. But the first topic discussed in VeVe 𝗵𝗏𝗡𝗏 interview had to do with onboarding in VeVe's upcoming affiliate program. Now, according to Ben, VeVe has just appointed a new affiliate lead who has lots of experience building affiliate programs with companies from around the world. This is fantastic news, and I think it's long overdue for a company that has such a passionate community like ours. Ben says he is still being onboarded, so don't expect it to take shape right away, but he says it's a key part of VeVe's growth strategy, and I'm so happy to hear that. I put a post out earlier talking about the importance of free collectibles, which I will probably talk about more soon, but combine that with something like an affiliate program and VeVe is off to the races. Word of mouth is going to be the most effective form of marketing. It's how a lot of our user base actually found out about VeVe back in the day. I would certainly argue that our community is one of the strongest digital collecting communities out there, so giving us the ability to onboard people via an affiliate program is huge. Ben says that they've hired someone to focus just on the marketing for drops, just on customer acquisition, and they're also hiring a lifecycle lead who will look on how to maximize each stage of the business. So for example, how does VeVe make sure that, someone gets through the sign-up process, and then when they're done with that, they go and actually buy a collectible, and then once they have the collectible, they understand how things work. Maybe after a period of time, that account becomes inactive. They need to learn how to make it active again, or they might lose them entirely. So how do you win people back who have uninstalled the app? Now, speaking of the app, we have a new layout, and Ben talks a little bit about the community response. So right now there is no feedback button on the mobile app, but there are several different avenues for you guys to submit feedback: X, Discord, the web app, and a few others. He says it was inevitable for some people to like it and then for some people to not like it. And they dropped the video right after to follow through with what they've already committed to, which is better communication. And I loved hearing this as well. What I will say here, and I know that they've already gotten tons of feedback, so I won't say too much, but I am very surprised that a lot of that stuff actually got approved. Like, there were some very obvious mistakes before they launched that I don't know why anybody would give the check mark for. I'm also wondering if there was a test group at all, because if not, why the inconsistency? I mean, we had a test group for 𝗖𝗵 to NFT. There was another feature that had a test group as well. The VeVe is one too. But I feel like a test group would have identified a lot of this stuff beforehand. Now moving on, we are back to the topic of transfers. Now we know the infrastructure is built. Transfers were already on the app in the past. But according to Ben, there are no concrete plans to reintroduce them. He says that if we have transfers enabled, there are ways for users to get around rules and regulations, which of course becomes a liability for VeVe because they are the centralized platform. But on top of that, it also becomes a hassle because now they need to provide even more customer service to whatever inquiries are coming in. That is not something that Ben said in this interview, but I do want to point that out because David has mentioned about how, if scams take place on the app, people are just going to run and point fingers at VeVe. Ben does, however, understand the importance and want for the feature, but he says they need to make tough decisions that might not necessarily look good in the short term, but are meant to benefit the longevity of the business. Now next, 𝗕𝗵_𝗿𝗂 brought up a pretty interesting point in my opinion, and he talks about the unboxing experience on VeVe. He actually compares it to the unboxing experience on Cryptoys and the new Pokemon TCG app. Both experiences on Cryptoys and Pokemon are unique, especially being able to choose your own pack on Pokemon. But the unboxing experience on VeVe, it's a little bland, and I do agree. Ben says that this is currently not on VeVe's roadmap, as this is not something they've received a lot of requests for. He says that when it comes to receiving feedback, the team needs to verify that feedback, and there's two ways they do this. The first one is determining whether there's demand for it. And the second thing they need to think about is, would it change behavior or engagement significantly? Now, when it comes to the X-Wing and Scout Trooper being interactive with the droid series, which was in the description when they dropped, Ben says the focus right now is to release what they have been promoting in the previews. They are working with licensors on what their IPs may look like in the future, but don't expect a feature like this in Q1. He says that branded environments are something that will come later. When it comes to more marketing for VeVe, Ben says that they brought on more expertise in public relations and communications. They've also appointed a PR agency with global reach. On top of these things, they are investing more money in advertising, while also working to leverage their IP relationships to be able to promote through their channels. They're also working on more phygital partnerships to introduce VeVe to new audiences, and as mentioned before, more in real life events starting next year. Lastly, I want to highlight some things from Ben's past roles that he can use to benefit VeVe. And according to him, VeVe has a fantastic setup. Apparently, they use the best-in-class CRM, which connects through to marketing. For anyone who doesn't know what a CRM is, a customer relationship manager. So pretty much anything involving your customers, anything involving your employees, any interactions between the two, it's all going to be tracked through the CRM. So if you go and fill out a form where you put in your email address, that email is now going to be captured and sent to the CRM if it's not already in there. And now VeVe can use this data to retarget or create lookalike audiences and attract new customers. Ben does, however, mention that the CRM is not being utilized to its full potential, so they are going to be working on that. And then also the affiliate program we mentioned already, Ben thinks that this is one of the biggest areas. And so they're working on getting an affiliate program up and running that doesn't require a lot of back-end work. In his exact words, focus is on speed of delivery. Ladies and gents, that is going to conclude today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed. That was all the key points from both of Ben's recent interviews with Captain VeVe and 𝗕𝗵_𝗿𝗂. Tomorrow, I'll be dropping by the Real Uncommon podcast to catch up with Hinano and D, and we're going to be talking all things VeVe and Vegas Decon. So if you guys want to check that out, make sure to follow me on X. Link is in the description, and turn on that bell so you're notified exactly when we're live. But if you enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. And as for our next, I'll catch you then.